Sorry.
I know, be natural. Oh, I was like, damn. Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Vajayjays podcast. I'm Krista.
I'm Liz.
I'm Catherine.
And I'm Tiffany.
So on today's episode, we want to talk about happiness. Lately, personally, I've been struggling with happiness. I've been dealing with a lot of lack of self-care. This whole, COVID quarantine situation, I know has been tough on a lot of people. So I think we're just going to get deep a little bit and dive in to what our happiness was, what happiness meant to us, I guess, in childhood to middle school or teenage years to now to adulthood. What do we look for in happiness? All right, so let's start with childhood. Anyone want to start? What did happiness look like for you when you were in elementary school or 5 or?
I would say my happiness was playing with toys, hella toys, and getting to eat basically anything. Now that I think about it as an adult, when you're a kid, you don't really think about your image until you're older, right? But as a kid, I was just like shoveling food left and right. Mom would be like, you can't leave the dinner table until you finish that. And I was like, hell yeah, I will.
Yeah, I think mine was as simple as like gel pens. If someone gave me a free gel pen, I was like, like ecstatic in our time because we're not like this generation where they have so many more things. So like something as simple as a pen would make me really happy. And also my mom has like 10 siblings here. And they all live within like 15 minutes from us. So like my whole childhood was growing up at my grandma's with a bunch of my cousins and like all my aunts and uncles. So it's like a lot of people. So that was happiness to me, was having so much family around and just like everyone being super close.
I don't know, it just makes me hungry just thinking about it because it's sausage pancakes and cinnamon, what is that called? Pop-Tarts? Cinnamon sugar Pop-Tarts?
Yes.
So
the
good.
bomb. That made me so happy. And I think I also relate with Catherine because I think just like playing with my cousins like every summer, like that was like the thing to like look forward to.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was being able to just ride my bike with my friends like in the neighborhood. And then we would always go to this park. It's called Turtle Rock Park. And we would just play like all day, like on the park, just random games like Lava Monster, tag, play on the swings, just talk. And then I had to come home right when the streetlights turned on. So I think that was like a vivid memory of like looking out for the streetlights and like, oh shoot, streetlights are on, I gotta go home. And making sure I was home on time. But that was just like so bliss, so fun, being able to just ride my bike around the neighborhood with my friends.
So basically everything made us happy.
You're so
and field
lucky though.
trips.
Oh, I love field trips and
Yeah.
substitute teachers.
Oh yes.
Oh.
See the little things. Yeah.
I think one time, since we hung out with our neighbors a lot, they used to go to like fast food a lot, but my family, we didn't go to fast food. Like that was like a treat, like after church, or a treat like on a Friday night. Like it was rare that my family ate fast food as a kid. And so they would always drive by and be like, hey Alessa, do you want to go to McDonald's? We're going to Burger King, or we're going to Taco Bell. And look at like my parents and I'd be like, can I go? And they'd be like, yeah. And then I would just like go and hop in the van and then we'd roll out to McDonald's. And I was like, I don't know why that was so fun.
Yeah.
That is super fun. We were not allowed to like know our neighbors. I don't know.
Oh,
we were
really?
like so sheltered as kids. Yeah, that's all I wanted to do was like to play outside in the streets because like I have like a lot of family from the Philippines and your friends are literally the ones that live right next to you. And like when they came here to visit me, they're like, you don't have, your friends aren't next door. I said, no.
Me too,
I only
though.
see them
Like,
at school. I'm only allowed.
yeah, I used to go to my friends' neighborhood block parties, and I was like, this is a thing. Like, I didn't even know neighbors could be so chill because we don't even talk to ours. Yeah.
So we should
Dang,
just like
block
move next to each
parties?
other, right?
Yes,
Sorry.
and we can throw the block parties.
Dude, my mom would like have me go around the neighborhood with her and be like, hi, we're just new around the house. We live at that one over there. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, that's so nice.
But like during Christmas, we would get like, like those boxes full of like the cookies. And then she'd be like, okay, now go give it to them. So I'd be like, Merry Christmas from our family to yours.
Aww.
That's cute.
Like thinking back as a kid, what would you say you would define happiness as? Like we said things and like objects and like actions that made us happy, but would you say you had like a word that might have defined happiness for you?
I'd probably say freedom, because my mom
Ooh.
wasn't really strict with my family, like especially me, since I'm a family full of, you know, like 6 girls. So she's really went through all like the strict tough parts with my older sisters. So I kind of got all the freedom that I needed. She never forced me to do like any like club or like instrument, because she was like, well, your sisters did it when they were younger and they just didn't want to do it. So I just assume you don't want to do it. So just go and like play.
I don't think I have a word, but like I did grow up in a strict childhood. And I remember, okay, this also made me happy. It's like I would force my brother, I would pay him 25 cents to let me be his teacher. And I loved it so much as a kid that I would take paper and make him like fake homework and actually correct it. And then he would ask if he could leave, and I'll be like, I'll give you another quarter if you stay a little longer. And he was so stupid, he just kept staying, but he hated it. And like that brought me so much joy because I was like, I'm so bored. Like I just loved doing, like I was drawing since I was like in elementary school. So like I remember when we were remodeling our house, my dad had those huge Home Depot pencils that you use for construction. And I thought, oh, I can challenge myself and draw my favorite cartoon characters with this fat pencil. And then I did, and that was like so fun for me. So yeah, I don't have a word. It's just stupid things like that made me so happy.
That's so cute. That big old giant pencil. I'm gonna challenge myself. I think as a kid, you know, we did a lot of that, like challenging ourselves, like, oh, I'm gonna beat my score. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't know.
For me, it was basketball and Fridays, because I would just play basketball after school on Fridays. And that was just like my time of freedom, because I was forced into like ballet, and I'm not the girliest girl, so ballet didn't interest me back then. I like it now though. But back then, I didn't want to do it. It's held against my will. I was forced to play all these instruments. I'm not even good at it now, so it's kind of like, whatever. But so I really enjoyed like Fridays, because nobody schedules anything on Fridays.
I think for me, it would be like the bliss and like the freedom, like Tiff said. Like I said, I was like free to roam around my whole neighborhood. I don't know how safe that is now looking back, but
Yeah.
and not to mention I lived on the east side. But my parents were just like super trusting, you know, and
Yeah.
in my household at the time, it was a village, right? My 2 uncles, my grandma, my brother, my sister, both my parents, you know, so there was like a lot of us, you know, raising me and my siblings. So yeah, I would just say like bliss or like freedom, really, like Tiff.
When we became teenagers, I think like we start thinking differently in terms of like what our happiness is. So like in high school, how would you have defined your happiness?
If I could sum it up in high school for that moment, I would just say just belonging would have made me happy,
Oh.
or like feeling that sense of belonging. I saw recently, can I read it? There's like a quote. I didn't plan this, by the way. Belonging is being somewhere where you want to be and they want you. Fitting in is being somewhere you want to be, but they don't care one way or the other. So I kind of like, that's just part of it. It's from Brene Brown. I just kind of like thought like, oh, I want to belong. Like I want to like the group that I'm in and have them like me back, rather than just, just trying to be somebody that people like.
Yeah, that's cute. I think in our teenage years, we're longing for that connection. We're longing for that I fit in. I am like that affirmation. So yeah, that's really cute. I think for me in my teenage years, it was softball. Softball was my go-to. Softball was my safe haven. That was my happiness for a very long time, even into my childhood. But it just was my escape once I was stepped on the field, once I had my glove in my hand, my bat in my hand, I was on a whole nother world. Nothing else mattered. I had my teammates by my side, and it wasn't always pretty. When you're with a group of girls, having teammates is not easy. There's drama, there's crushes, if I'm being honest, just a whole lot of emotions, especially at that age. And then wanting to retaliate against our coaches, just a bunch of different things. And it made me honestly the leader that I am today. So I'm super grateful for the sport and how much joy it really brought to my life and fulfillment. Really, I felt so fulfilled and so like needed or like wanted that affirmation that I think Krista's talking about.
I don't think mine changed much from childhood because if I think about it, my escape was like artsy stuff too. I was like always drawing at home, and then that was my first art class ever in high school. And my teacher actually, like, we connected so well, and she was encouraging me to go to art school because she was like so passionate about my work. And it was like really cool because, like, you know, my family didn't really get it, and like I had this adult here telling me that I can go do something. So yeah, it was nice to have her there. We were really close. And then also just like the family parties brought me a lot of happiness because I couldn't go out with my friends much in high school because like my parents are pretty strict. So like um every time we'd have family parties, because we have birthdays like every month, I would have so much fun. And I'm so cheesy, I still remember this moment in high school when I graduated and I walked out and like 30 something of my family was standing there waiting for me. I just saw them and immediately started crying because I was so overwhelmed by how many people came out of their busy days, like on a Friday, I think, or something, to come see me. And I was like, damn, like I have all this family here. It's really freaking cool. So like that made me happy. Yeah. It was just the same thing, art and family.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. It's your happiness. I'd probably say it was because I joined VSA in high school, and I did like kind of, what was it that we had? We had like the school assemblies where you did like performances and stuff. But I didn't really get into like the later half of like maybe like junior, senior year. That's when I was like super involved. I was like club president, and I think that that was like my family, my happiness, because like those are the people that I mostly hung out with, besides, you know, like Catherine and like the group that we had. Like I felt more comfortable with my VSA club because we had spent so much time together. We really got to know each other, and we just like, I don't know, we just kind of, we were basically what you like, what Krista and Alyssa said, like it's just somewhere like you felt like you belonged, and like everybody kind of knew what everybody was doing and like what the deal was, and I don't know, just like, you know, the sense of belonging and family.
There's nothing like the shared sense of like stress to bring people together that makes you feel like you belong. Because I was also in like the Filipino club where we did things like that, like we would like do performances,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was also in the dance like team, so that was stressful in itself. So like, just go through some stress, guys. It'll really bond you.
Or really just put yourself out there and see what you like, because I didn't know anybody in that VSA club, and I was like, I'm just gonna join just to join, and then I just met like all these great people, super funny.
When you guys are like reaching the end of your teenage years, like we're about to go to college, did you guys have like, okay, so for me, I was always like a hopeless romantic. And so like around this time, I thought my happiness was always looking toward the future, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to hopefully my dream college in the future. And then I can't wait to do these adult things. Once I finish college, I'm going to go travel, I'm going to get married, have kids, and then just be a mom and wife while working. And I was like, that was what happiness to me was when I was about to become an adult. So like when you guys were done with high school, is that how you felt?
No.
Oh,
About to get real with y'all.
okay.
Ending high school and then going into college, like it was like a really big, hard transition for me. I don't know, I just don't deal well, I guess, with transitions, but like, yeah, I was just like kind of like sad all the time just because transitions are just hard for me. So I think like in that kind of like age range, like the simplest things would just make me happy. Like I think that's when the Chick-fil-A's started like opening up in our area. And honestly, like eating nuggets was just like the like I was just thankful for nuggets, you know what I mean? Like just thankful that I could even like eat this thing that's like supposedly so good, you know? So I think just like back then anything made me happy, like or I would like try to like see it as like being happy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I necessarily had a change in like happiness from going into college. Like Krista said, like going from high school to college is difficult because then you're kind of like forced to be responsible. You have to like make like choose classes that, you know, pertain to your major. Like when we enrolled to college, like we were forced to kind of be like, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? You have to like know exactly your game plan when you go into college, because otherwise you're just wasting time, you're wasting money, and you're just like, I don't know, just taking up a spot. So I feel like when I got into college, I was kind of just like, I think more of my happiness was just like I want to graduate within the 4 years. Didn't happen, obviously. Graduated within 6 years. But I think my happiness is more just like finishing the journey, like trying to get the diploma ready so that I can go into the corporate world and make money for a life that was supposedly going to happen, for like traveling, you know, family wise, just kind of anything.
I think it was like that for me because I had no freedom really here. So like I was excited to leave, like as stressed as I was, because I did go to school early, like when I transferred, and then I actually came back home before school started because I was getting really lonely there. Like I just wasn't used to it and I was homesick. But then when I got back, I was like, this is the freedom I always wanted, right? So like I'm gonna enjoy it. And so like as stressed as I was, maybe that's why I was looking at it that way, like different from you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think like Catherine said, I did have like dreams and aspirations. Like, oh, I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna have my family. I'm gonna have this career. I'm gonna buy my own house. Here I am, no house. But I think I agree with Tiffany. I was really stressed. If we like I said in the other podcast, I didn't have a school to go to. I didn't know what I was doing, or where my life was really going. I was kind of just like, it was like the luck of the draw, honestly, of how I ended up and like where my path had taken me, because there was no plan, there was no preparing, there was no nothing. And so that was honestly super scary. And then having to go into this new world, right? I ended up getting a job, one of my first jobs. So that was stressful too, going to school and working. So I guess it was really just my happiness was hanging out with friends, and then, you know, doing things that probably shouldn't have been doing at the time. But at the time, it brought me happiness. Partying, you know.
Same.
Okay, so now that we're older and, you know, we've kind of gone through the rocky parts of our life, how do you guys define your happiness now?
I like that you said the rocky parts of our life, because there were some rocky points.
There were. See, every journey.
But for me, I think happiness is living in the present. I have long lived my life for the future, long lived my life of the past. There was many moments in life, my early 20s, where I dwelled on the past a lot, you know, and said like, what if, what could have happened, what would have happened, and lived in that what if life. Like, if I had just turned left, would my life have been different? If I said yes, would my life have changed? And as I obviously matured and grew older, I've come to learn that living in the present is all we have. Yesterday's gone, so we don't have it anymore. Tomorrow's technically not here, so all we have really is right now. And in these moments and in day-to-day life, I have to learn to find happiness. I have to learn to celebrate the victories that I've overcome in the day, whether that's getting up and making my bed. I didn't do that this morning. It's okay. Or whether that's surviving, feeding myself, because life can be really stressful. I mean, like Tiff said, you know, rocky points in our life. It's not always sunflowers and daisies. That's just a little take of where I'm at right now with happiness.
Okay, for me, I'm like the same as Liz. It's like, I think as you get older, you realize happiness, it's not constant. And like, because we all have bad days, and that's totally okay. It's more of a mindset. That's what I learned. Like, you choose to be happy with the situations you're in. So like, it's kind of like success, where people are always like chasing success, right? And then when you get to where you want to be, you're not satisfied because you're like, I want more. And so I feel like that's how happiness is, if you're always chasing it, because you're not living in the present and you're not appreciating what you do have. So like, I think like the key to finding it, when people always say they want to find it, is like to already look at the good in what you already have.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I also just live in the present, because before I was just like her, where I was like thinking what if all the time, and then like, oh my gosh, like my past is messing me up, like who I am right now. But then it's like, with age, you kind of realize you got to just let that stuff go.
It's almost like the blame game. Like, well, I'm not happy because of this, or I'm not happy because this happened in my life. And it's like, it's honestly like, I don't know how to say this nicer, but when are you going to get over it?
Yeah.
When are you going to let it go? You know what I mean? When are you going to choose to move on and move forward? You know, because at some point in life, once you're done dwelling on it, you have to move on from it. You're going to have to keep going. Yes, it happened. Yes, it sucks. But life goes on, like a lot of people say, as cliche as that sounds.
Yeah.
Day is a gift. That is why they call it the present. I
Wow,
think that's from Calvin
yes.
and Hobbes.
So good.
I totally agree. Everything both of you just said. I agree so much so that I have it tattooed on me. I don't know if you can read that. It says joyful. But anyway, it's also my name. If you didn't know, my name is Krista Joy. That's my first name, no hyphen. But the difference between
So
happiness,
Filipino.
I know, huh? Mary Grace. Okay. So the difference between happiness and joy is that happiness happens because of happenstance. So people think that happiness is like a circumstance, or like you have to have so many things in place and they have to be in the right ratio for you to be happy. But of what I liked about the word about joy is that it's not that you choose to be happy, but it's you choose to be grateful for what you have in the moment. It's being
Yeah.
present, and you know, and it's enjoying everything. Like even if this is what really I had the hardest time with, even just in the past 2 years, is that even if I'm like suffering on the inside, if something's like bothering me like mentally and like relationally with other people, I think just being able to enjoy the process of it and like looking at it like in the sense of that I can enjoy the fact that I'm becoming more aware of myself and my
Mm,
surroundings.
that's good.
That is really like flipping that perspective is what really made me more joyful and more appreciative of like the people and things around me. But that took like 26 years to like learn, and I'm just barely like on the cusp of it. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't feel
Yeah.
bad if you don't see it this way yet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with all you guys. I think the only difference I would have is just I think my happiness is focused on what can happen in the future. So like I'm planning for like like trips and stuff future. Hoping to have money in the bank somewhere in the good range where I could put a down payment for a house and then like have a family. So I think you guys are definitely right. Living in the present right now, but also like hoping for the future doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen. But I think it's nice to still have those aspirations for you to kind of like reach towards. Because otherwise, if you don't really have anything, I feel like you kind of just like slip and you're just like, well, I'm just living in the happiness now. Then it's just gonna like dip down tomorrow. What if it goes even lower? So it's like you kind of have to push yourself to think of like the most optimistic point of it, even though some people are like, don't be so optimistic about it. I'm like, well, it's better for me to think above than to think I don't know, being very pessimistic and just being super negative, and that just like
Yeah.
affects your mood and everything.
I think to go off of what Tiffany said, one thing that I've learned over the years too is that it's like a yin yang, right? You can't have happiness without darkness. You don't know joy unless you've been through some mud. You don't know like true enlightenment and joy unless you've been through something that you were like in a very dark place. And that's not to say that you have to go through that. That's not to say that you can't be happy without those things. But I think it's important to realize that they go hand in hand, and that it is like a yin and a yang. Like without the one or the other, there's nothing, right? It's like darkness and light. There's no light if there's no darkness. There's no darkness if there's no light.
You know what's actually
Yeah,
really
me
cool
too.
about what you just said? Can I have a second to pull it down?
Krista, every podcast you're always grabbing something.
I just
What
really,
are
I
you
just like,
pulling
I
down?
really want to show you guys. Hold on.
She's so enthusiastic.
I know.
So joyful. Okay.
Because this was like from a time where like I wasn't feeling so joyful. And this was a gift from Liz. I don't think you can read it, but it's like
Wow.
this background is from One Tree Hill. That's my favorite show, by the way. But the quote is, and when you find yourself lost in the darkness and despair, remember it's only in the black of night that you see the stars. Thank you.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Okay, well, all of this we're saying like leads into the question: how you know how in movies they or like not even just in movies, people we know too will always just be like, I want to find happiness, or like they're chasing it, right? And like people are always saying happiness is like something that's tangible, and so like do you think that people chase or like seek happiness too often to really appreciate life? And then like, what do you think about people saying not to live for the future and to live in the present, so that it's kind of like what we talked about, but I guess like more in depth? I don't know. Or here, I can say my answer and then maybe it'll make more sense.
Yes.
So like when I went to therapy, my first therapist actually like helped me when I was like really, really in a tough time in college, and she taught me like perspective. I mean, happiness is a perspective. That's kind of what I meant by like you choose it, because if you constantly look at your situations in a negative way, you're never going to be happy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this took me time to understand, because even in college, like I just kept looking to the future when things were hard. I was like, okay, I'm going to finish school and I'm going to have this life where I can go travel before I have kids, and then I don't have to worry about how much money I spend because I'm going to have a job. Like that's just what I kept thinking. So that's what got me through college. But then it's like my life completely was the opposite when it came out, because instead of doing all that, I didn't get to travel. I had all these health problems. It took up like 4 of my years after college, right? Took all my money for these like medical bills. So like it forced me to live in the present and deal with it, and it kind of like humbled me. Not that like I wasn't appreciative about life, but like after those days I'm so grateful for to even be like waking up the next day. Is that weird? Like I literally think that when I wake up, it's like if I wake up and my pain is not killing me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like thank you, right? Like I'm so happy about the little things. So like I stopped looking to the future, if that makes sense. Like I get what you mean, Tiff, about like, oh, like have these vacations, yes, like that. But I think that I was so focused on, oh my gosh, my life sucks right now, like let me just keep thinking about what I can have later, that I didn't think, okay, why don't you just deal with your health problems? And now I can see a positive in it, because I got to do my blog, I got to do these different things, meet new people to talk about it. So like, yes, happiness is a perspective. I don't think you can like just go chase it, because it's not something you can just grab. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people do chase it, whether it's money, whether it's a job, whether it's putting that on your family, or a car, maybe, you know, like big purchases, like a house, maybe. And when you put your happiness in a thing, in a person, in an object, you are ultimately not fulfilled. And I think that goes back to what we talked about with love languages. If you're not filling your own cup, if you're not filling up your own happiness, taking that self-care in your own self, there's no way you're going to be happy.
Yeah.
I totally feel you. Like, you know, like people will like put their happiness like in people and things, but also like a lot of the times people and things fail us. Like they just aren't reliable. So it's like if you put your happiness in something that's easily broken, it's just, I mean, it could be fun for a time, but it's just not sustainable either.
Yeah. Going into that, actually, when in my teenage years, I looked to that. Like I looked to boyfriends at the time for happiness. I looked to friends for happiness, like I was saying, like partying, friendships, social gatherings like that. I was putting that as happiness. If I wasn't doing those things, I wasn't happy. If I wasn't hanging out with my boyfriend or getting that affirmation from him, I wasn't happy. And then obviously that led to like fights and arguments, because at the end of the day, he wasn't responsible for my happiness. I was responsible for my happiness.
No, like you guys definitely covered it. It's not something that you can really obtain. I think it's something that people would say it's like a path, because it like kind of like leads you to what makes you happy, but ultimately like when you grasp it, it's only a happiness for like a spurt, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing with like people who are trying to find love. It's like, don't go looking for it, like it will naturally come to you, because it's like why I guess it sounds mean to say this, but it's like, why would you spend your time looking for it, right? Because you're spending your time looking for other things in life too, like whether it be like, you know, jobs, like I don't know, building connections with like friends and family, and just kind of like, I don't know, you're ultimately like just your whole like lifestyle itself. So I feel like you have the choice of doing like spending that time to find this happiness, but at the same time it's kind of like, I feel like that time can be spent elsewhere, when a lot of the stuff that happen, like really good stuff that happened too, just come out of nowhere. And it's when you least expect it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think that's when, you know, I feel like the whole timing with like love too, it's like you don't time it. You're like, okay, I'm in school, like I don't have time for love. It's not gonna be like that. Like if you meet someone like a classmate and you guys like have this attraction, You're not going to be like, hold up, you know, I got to graduate first before we date. It's like, no, it's just
You're
like,
not on my timeline.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to get at. It's just like, the timing is also just like sporadic. You never know when it's going to happen. And when you have it, like, that's when it is.
I think that's a good point too, that when you are happy, enjoy it, because it's not always going to be joyous. It's not always going to be brighter days. And I think that's a really good point that Tiff is trying to make, that when there is happiness in life, like really soak it, enjoy it, deep bathe in it, and remember how that feels. Excuse me. Because when the days get darker, you're going to have to lean on that. You're going to have to lean on that hope that one day your days are going to be a lot brighter again.
But also, like, when you do have bad days, I totally agree that you should just let those let yourself be sad.
Yeah.
Feel the emotions, and then go do something else that makes you happy later. Like, let yourself go through all the emotions so you can just, like, you don't always have to be happy. You know what I mean? It's okay. And it's also good sometimes to be sad, because then you appreciate when you're happy again. You're like, damn, I just got out of that.
Would you guys say that you put your happiness in places that you probably shouldn't in any part of life?
I think I was the same like you when I was younger. Even in college, maybe I put it a lot into my friendships. I think I always put a lot too much into my friendships, because that's close. Like, when I talk about how I'm really lucky to have all that family, like my actual household, maybe I wasn't like super close to them. So I always leaned on my friends as like family. And sometimes I think I put too much pressure on my friendships, and I get disappointed easily when I was younger if like they didn't live up to my expectations of like family.
Yeah, that's good.
But now I don't do that anymore.
Definitely.
Healthy friendships.
No, I can totally relate. I think I like put a lot of my like hopes and dreams and my happiness onto people like that I thought were like safe. Like I just said that people are not like safe places to put your happiness, but I thought these people were like safe as in that like, oh, they have some credit to them, you know what I mean? Like like longtime family that, you know, there's an unbroken bond forever. And like I previously had like mentors that like I looked up to and gave me they helped grow me as a person, you know what I mean? So I thought like, oh, I can put my happiness in that kind of friendship. But even in then, even if somebody like help me in my times of growth, even then I can't put my like happiness in them. But yeah, I learned my lesson.
And that's hard because as a trusted person, right? But again,
Right.
we're learning that we don't put happiness in things, right? We come with our own happiness.
I mean, it's kind of like doing yeah, like kind of putting like happiness in friendships, right? But it hasn't gone to the point where it's like been broken. Besides like the ex-bestie, I'd say it probably went into more of happiness in my coworkers, because you know, like as your coworkers, you guys work as a team, so you guys go in together to help one another. But that shit kind of broke apart during I think when I was working at Lucy's. Like I didn't realize that I had two coworkers that hated me. Like that's an actually strong word. Like they actually really hated me, and I didn't know it until like I think it was like maybe a year and a half that I was in, and they like both girls had like one of them had left already, and then the other one like she just like fucking like threw me under the bus for no reason. I don't know why, but then like after that it cost shit, and I told my manager, I was like, hey, like I love working for you and I love like working with our other coworkers. I was like, but she's just trying to start shit with me. And I was like, and I'm just not down for it. And then I was like, I gave her the ultimatum, and it's literally because I was like, I can't work in an environment that I don't feel comfortable in. And I was like, because literally this girl would just smile at me and just like total two-faced. She'd like, you know, trash talk me. I'd be like, okay, well, why should I work with you and help you? Like, I'm trying to help you grow because I was your supervisor. And it just like, I don't know, she just like really hated, like she really fucking hated me. And so I just told her, I was like, okay, well, I was like, if you're not gonna let her go, then I'm just gonna leave, because I was like, I don't want to work in a toxic environment where she's just gonna try to poison everybody to go against me.
She a Gemini?
I don't know.
I'm so surprised, first of all. I just have to say, you are like one of the hardest people to hate. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, so after that I was like, Okay, fuck this bitch.
Happiness, Tiff. Happiness. Just kidding.
I know, right?
I did give them happiness, okay? You know, I put my happiness in them. Like I was like, I would like we treat each other out, you know, we'd take each other's shifts and then this happened and then that's it.
Would you guys say that if you were taught happiness as a child or had a good example of what happiness looked like growing up, that you might have changed your perspective of happiness a little sooner than maybe now? Like if you had a good role model in your family or your family values may have been like, this is what happiness looks like. This is what, you know, this is how you be happy.
So when I grew up, like I was taught that happiness was getting, just the American dream, going to college, getting a job, getting a house, 2 kids, white picket fence. That's the American dream. And then because my parents were the ones who taught me that. And then I think as I grew, they were also growing. Then they said, you know what? We know we told you this. Like it's all about getting and achieving and being successful. But later they tried teaching me it's about being giving. It's about being generous people. And they were generous to a fault. Like I went to therapy over that. They are so generous that it was kind of like a little much. So I think like I took it the wrong way. Like, and then when I see people like give way more than they should, like I just kind of didn't want to do that for myself. So I'm kind of coming back around now, like thinking happiness is being able to give to others, to be able to be generous. Not that you have to be generous, but just having the ability to and giving what you think in, by your own standards is enough to give to other people without, I don't have to give any 2 cents what you think I should give. It's about what I want to give other people.
I
So
think for me,
happiness.
yeah, that's really
You
good.
have great parents.
I know.
I love them.
Gosh.
Yeah, they're
She's the most
best.
stable family of all of us. I think
You can have
for,
them, you can borrow.
yes, please, please, please. I told you I want marriage counseling.
Yeah.
I think for me, the media or like movies and TV taught me that happiness was having a husband and having that relationship is where you found your happiness. I think the media portrayed this image that if you're a female, you get married, and once you're married, you're happy. So I think that's why I always looked and seeked happiness in my boyfriends or at the time. And my parents are divorced, so I didn't see happiness. I felt that I didn't see happiness from my parents. And I grew up in an Asian household, so that we weren't really affectionate. So there was no hugs, there was no kisses, there was no I love you. And so that was really hard for me to understand, like, okay, so not only am I taught from the media that happiness is like this love and affection, but then I'm also not receiving that at home. So am I really happy? How do I find this happiness? And so that's when I started looking for it in boys and thinking like, these boys are going to fulfill me. These boys are going to bring me this happiness that I'm so longing for. And it took a while to break that. It took a really long time. And it took some really, really rough relationships for me to realize like, whoa, hold on. This is not happiness. This is not what happiness looks like. And I feel that if I was taught at a young age what happiness is and how you feel happiness or how you perceive happiness, would really have opened my perspective.
I thought I didn't have an answer, but now that you said that, like, I feel like you and I actually have really similar lives. We just didn't know. And so, like, we can totally do like growing up in an Asian household podcast, because I feel like that's something else, but like, I totally understand. I think I did the same where, okay, I wasn't allowed to like date. I was like terrified of my parents, right? So like, I wasn't like listed in different relationships because I just couldn't. So like I think I always like saw my cousins growing up. They all married. I went to a lot of weddings because I have so many cousins. They all married like their high school sweethearts, middle school lovers. Like they all had relationships that were really, really long. And I am like one of the few that are not married at this age yet. and it's weird. And I think that's why when I was younger, I was always like, I'm gonna have one guy and I'm gonna marry that guy just like all my cousins. So I guess I was looking at happiness like that, where, oh my god, look at my cousins, they're so happy in their relationships, they've been together for like 10 years, they got married, and now they're just living like this great life. And then I got older and I was like really sad about it, not gonna lie. I was like, damn, I feel like I'm really behind. And like, you know, in Asian families you feel like you're judged. But then now I'm just like, I don't care anymore. Like I loved how my perspective of happiness has changed.
Yeah, I'm super grateful too. I'm super grateful my perspective of happiness has changed. It's made me a whole new person.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was younger, I think what they kind of drilled into a lot of, not just mine, like a lot of like family households, is like happiness is money and success.
Mm-hmm.
Is just like, oh, you know, you gotta have a really good job, have like, or like get married to someone who's like stupidly rich, like a doctor.
Doctor.
And then I don't know, I just felt like, okay, over the years I was like, okay, this is something that maybe like everyone should be doing, because my grandma would always say that. She's like, you don't have to work hard, you just have to marry someone who has the money and who's willing to take care of you. But I'm like, first of all, I was like, I'm an independent woman, I don't need no man to take care of myself. Like, I love being independent myself. Like, I want to buy my own stuff because I'm like, I bought that, I spent my money on that. Like, I don't want to be like, my boyfriend bought it for me. I'm like, no, I fucking bought it. That's my money.
Yeah.
It's like
Very
back
rich.
in the day, that was probably, you know, the culture
goal.
then.
Yeah.
I was like, but now like, women want to be their own person. Like, we don't want to have to be, we're all like labeled as this person's husband, right?
Why?
It's just like,
I
we want to
hate that.
Oh yeah.
I am Wesley's sister and Wes's daughter. My brother and my dad have the same name, and I've always been Wesley's sister and Wes's daughter.
But now you're Master Liz. They can't say nothing.
You know what I'm saying? That's right. That's right, Catherine. So I'm thankful for you. Hype me up.
But you know, I like, as we grew older, I was just like, okay, like, money's not going to make me happy because I can buy anything in the world, but it's like I said, it's just like a small spark of happiness, and then I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm done with it. Mm-hmm. And then I talked to my coworker when I was working at a tax firm, and I was talking to her about someone. I used to work at a tax firm, and I looked at someone's W-2 because that's my job, and this person made like $2.5 million at Apple, right? And I was like, holy crap, like, this person's hella rich. And she's like, but are they happy? And I was like, I mean, you're right, though. You're right. Yeah. I was like, I'm just looking at like monetary numbers. And she's like, think about it like this. She's like, a person who has $1 million and has like a kid, right? How happy are they really going to be? They're spending money to keep their kids happy, to whatever the latest crazes are, right? But they're not actually, the kids aren't really happy. They're looking for attention from the parents, which the parents can't give because they're just like, I have work to do, so I'll just buy you this new game console. And she's like, here I am working maybe like a 60,000 to 70,000 job, right? She's like, but I got 3 boys who like I love with all my heart. She's like, I have a hardworking husband. She's like, yeah, we might not like be able to like live super hype. What is it? I don't know what the word is. She's like, maybe we can't go to like a 5-star restaurant. She's like, but we happily go together as a family to go to, you know, the get tacos at the corner and just hang out and just like just be us. Like, we don't have to worry about like neglecting our kids, because ultimately like money and like time, it's not gonna equate. Like, she's like, I want to spend more time with my kids. Like, money will come and go. It's just, you know, it's like water. You can get a lot and then you can lose it all. So she's like, but your kids' happiness and your happiness now in the present is what matters. And I was like, oh, you're so sweet.
But also, not all rich people are bad parents.
No, that's true too.
Yeah, because my uncle and aunt make a lot, but they are some of the best parents I've ever seen. Just need to say that.
All right, so I know we talked about some dark moments, and I kind of posed this question yesterday to you guys just out of the whim because I was just going through it in my head. But what are some like self-care things that you do to help fulfill that happiness or to help create happiness when you need to?
I used to like turn to my art, but now that that's kind of my job, I want to get away from it at night. So like, I have to say, just listening to podcasts or watching TV, I literally don't do anything else, which is probably pretty bad. But like, I just get so tired after working that I just want to be in bed and watch a good show.
I hear you on that, but I fall asleep to shows.
Yeah.
The minute my head hits my pillow, it's done for. So done for. Invest in some
Dude,
really
that
good
is
pillows.
really-
That brings me happiness.
I wish I could fall asleep that fast.
You know what? You might like think that I was joking about the 30-second dance parties, but I literally, now that I'm working from home, as soon as I feel like tired, I gotta get up, I gotta do a 30-second dance party, and then I go back.
Aw.
And it just
You're
keeps me
right.
energized throughout the day.
Same thing that I said yesterday, which is like baking, playing video games, or watching movies. I really like to watch I would constantly rewatch a lot of movies that I like, and I don't get tired of it. And unfortunately, Michael doesn't really like watching it, so usually I just watch it alone. But it helps me get my like thoughts out, you know, like especially like if I'm like I don't really want to hang out with you and I just want me time. I'm just gonna like focus on this.
What's the movie that you guys can always play back when you just want something playing and like it makes you feel good? Mine is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. For years, I just always watch that.
I like 50 First Dates. That
Oh,
movie
yeah.
is really good.
Yeah.
I can always watch that movie. Adam Sandler, any Adam Sandler movie, to die for.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, mine is About Time. But before
Ah.
that, it was She's the Man.
Oh,
Ooh,
that one's always good.
I would probably say Tangled or the Harry Potter series. I never get tired of watching it.
Oh, cute.
Especially if I'm in a musical mood. I'll be like, I'm putting Tangled on.
You know all the songs, right?
I know a majority of songs. Do I know the lyrics by heart? No, so I'll mess up a lot, but I laugh about it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
For me, my self-care is working out. So this week I've been forcing myself to work out before I start school with my students. But it's tough because my bed is my enemy.
You and your alarms.
My pillows, man, my pillows, they're my enemy, but they're so great at the same time. Yeah, I have 50 alarms. I'm that person that presses snooze like 10 times. So I have to set an alarm like an hour before I actually have to get up. And then in that hour, I snooze.
Oh.
And I'm like, damn, okay, now I have to get up. I think, and then something else that I do for self-care is I try to read, but reading also puts me to sleep if I read at night. So lately I've been trying to read on my lunch to try to fulfill and pass the time without scrolling through social media when I shouldn't be. I like to read a lot of like self-help books or self-encouraging books. I was never a reader. Guys, I was never a reader. When you guys tried to make me read Twilight in middle school, I read like chapter 1. I was never a reader. And so if I'm being quite honest, as a teacher, it's so hard for me because I have to be like, reading is so fun, but I hate it. I hate it. I'm a teacher who hates reading, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm more of a writer than I am a reader.
Mm-hmm.
And fiction.
I'm just trying to make myself seem better.
And fiction.
Send it to us already.
One day we're gonna do a podcast reading Tiffany's sexual fan fiction.
Oh my God.
I'll
That's all I want for my birthday. I just want to know your inner mind. I just want to know how it works.
the Cliff Notes. Can we get Cliff Notes?
Tip notes.
There are no cliff notes. It's all in the story, baby.
Oh my god.
Could you guys recall like a moment of happiness, like true happiness that you felt? Like any kind of memory?
So I had mentioned before that softball is my life and softball was my true happiness. So my dad was my coach my whole life. As much as I loved it, I also hated it because he's my dad. You know, I'd rather have him being my cheerleader than my biggest critic. And I struggled a lot with that, if I'm being quite frank. And one of my favorite games and favorite memories of softball, and I still have my bat here today, actually, right behind me, because I thought there was an intruder in my house.
It's just me. Sorry.
This bat is super old. I had it when I was 12 years old, and I hit my very first and only home run in my entire softball career, and I played softball for a really long time. It was my first and only home run, and so this bat is really special to me. But in that very same game, I had pitched like 12 innings. It was crazy. And normally you only pitch at 12 years old, you normally only pitched anywhere from 5 to 6 innings. So I dang near pitched double that. And I pitched amazing. It was one of my best games I'd ever pitched in my whole life. And we ended up winning the championship game. So it was a championship game for league. So like it was interleague. So not only like our little league, but it was like
Yeah.
all of like PAL. And so we ended up winning the game, and I was 12 years old. And at the end of the game, my dad always gave a game ball. I had never gotten a game ball in my entire life with my dad as a coach. I never got a game ball. You know how many games I have played with my dad as my coach, and he never gave me a dang game ball? Like, I deserved a million of them, and I never got one. Not one. And so finally, at the age of 12, at the end of that game, he made this long old speech, and I can even remember some of the words he said. And he finally was like, and this ball is truly deserved. And he gave it to me. And I was dang near in tears. Yeah. And all my friends signed it. I still even have my jersey from that game. We all signed it after. Like, that was such a special moment for me. And it, like, true bliss, true happiness, true freedom right there. I'm going to cry. Sorry.
Aww.
That's so cute.
So some background. Somebody once told me that, well, this is again a trusted person, so I kind of like take their advice because they're older than me, and I just figure I like their lives, so they should know better than me. So this person said to me, like, you should have a good reason for getting married. And I was like, what's a good reason? She says, just a good reason. Getting married just to like live together, because, you know, I grew up a little conservative and traditional, so you can't like, it's not that you can't, but it's kind of like not advised to like live with somebody before you're married. So just wanting to like live with somebody is not a good enough reason to like get married to them. So I kind of was like, oh, well then what is a good reason? So then for some time I was kind of like, oh, I don't think I have a good reason. But Oliver had been wanting to like get married for a while. But I was just here just kind of like thinking like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what's a good reason. I don't know if I'm ready. There's just too many like moving pieces. It's not that I don't want to marry him. It's like, do I have a good enough reason?
Okay, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, and somebody else who I also trust and also look up to was like, you don't need a good enough reason other than you want to do it.
Yeah.
The want is good enough reason for that. And she said to trust my instincts. So I believe both of them. I'm still good friends with both of them. But I did struggle for a time like thinking like, ooh, do I have a good enough reason? And I think we came up with this plan. Like, he had been wanting to propose for a long time. And then he said, you know what? I tried to propose, but like I just like afraid that you're gonna turn me down. So he asked me to propose to him first. You know what I mean? So that I could decide when I was ready, and then I would propose to him first, and then he would propose to me next. And so I always had that in mind. And I remember I was going to the Philippines, and I was like thinking, you know, I think I am ready. Like, I think my reason for getting engaged, for getting married is good enough. I don't have to explain myself to anybody. This is just what I want, you know? And then I regretted in that moment because I was like, oh, we're in the Philippines. We're on this beautiful island. He took me up to the top of a hill, and we're looking at like the like 360 views of the ocean. And it's like, I didn't bring a ring. I didn't propose. Like, this would be a really nice place and way to propose. And I'm thinking all of this while I'm looking at the ocean. He says, he starts talking, and I notice that he's crying, and I turn around, and there he is proposing to me before I can even do it. So he didn't even follow the rules. He just kind of said, F it, let's just go for it. And I just kind of felt like that to me was like really perfect, because like I already knew to myself that that's what I wanted, but he went out and did it, you know, for me. So I kind of like that we were on the same page, and that made me really happy.
Yay.
Aww,
Oh,
Oliver.
dude, who would have thought you guys are both thinking it at the same time, and he was just like, this is the best time, I'm gonna do it. And he didn't even have to consult you about it either. I think like
No,
he
didn't.
knew that maybe you were planning. I think the happiest moment that I can like really recall is probably a field trip that my mom had signed to become like the what's it called, a chaperone.
Yeah.
And I said that because my mom is always busy. And so I knew that every time I asked her, I'd be like, okay, she's probably going to say no because she's busy. And I was like, I really wanted her to go with me. And she actually agreed. And she's like, yeah, I'll go on this field trip with you. And I was like slap happy. Like, I went to school, I went to be a teacher, and I was like, my mom says she's going to chaperone. And she's like, oh, okay, just hand me the form. And like, I was talking to my mom, I was like, so what should we get for lunch? Like, what else do you think we should do? And she's just like, well, why don't we just wait until we go on the field trip?
Aww.
And we went to like
So
SF Zoo,
cute.
and a lot of my friends knew my mom too, because like they had come over for like birthday parties. And so they'd be like, I want to be in Tiffany's group because her mom's cool. And I was like, yeah. And like, I don't know, it's just like really a happy time for me, because I think that's the most, like, I know my mom tries to spend as much time as she can with all of us, but it's just like kind of a hassle. And I think when I was younger, I was like, oh, well, I'm like the runt of the family. I'm like the baby. So like, she doesn't have time for me. But obviously, like, my sister's like, what are you talking about? Like, your mom's favorite, which I still don't think is true, because I think my mom's firstborn favorite is my sister. But anywho, we went to the SF Zoo, and like she let me buy like any of the souvenirs, and I got a cup. I was like so happy about this damn cup. I was just like, this is the best gift ever. And I don't know, like it just is like a really fun time for me, because I think I got to hang out with her more when she was just like available and had time for just me versus like all my sisters.
Oh, that's so cute. I love to hear that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to try not to cry. Every time I talk about my grandma, I want to cry. Okay, so like I was super, super close with my grandma. Like even though she had a million grandchildren, like I felt like a really special connection with her. I don't know. And she used to always let us cook with her. But like I learned to cook rice. I think all of us learned how to cook rice pretty young, right? Yeah, I was like a kid standing on a stool like washing. But she never let me cut the peas because I was not allowed to hold a knife. And so I remember the one time she finally let me like cut the peas. I don't know. It just felt really cute. I loved cooking with my grandma. I don't want to say anymore because I'll cry if I think about her.
Oh, that's so cute.
Does Grandma
Grandmas are the
Holly?
best, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm like happy. I'm really happy now. I don't know. I feel really enlightened, guys. I love hearing
Yeah.
your guys' stories.
Think happy thoughts. Remember them. Cherish them. You know what? You just remind me of my grandma. She taught me how to make shorts one time. Like actual shorts. They were my favorite because they fit perfectly. And I remember she was like sewing, and then she pricked herself on the finger or whatever. And like, you know how like as you get older your skin gets tough, right? So when she pricked herself, like I heard it and it just sounded horrendous. It sounded really like piercing leather. Like it was just that, like, you know, it's just different. And then I was like, oh, and I was like, I'll get a Band-Aid, I'll get the alcohol. She goes, it's no problem, whatever. And then she just kind of went on. She didn't even bleed that much. And I was just like, you know what? That's my hero. She didn't even care, like, if things hurt her. But that made me happy. My favorite shorts, I learned a lesson. And she taught me how to make more shorts, but I didn't, I never made another pair of
She
shorts.
like let me break all the rules that I couldn't do at home. So it was just like the best time. I never wanted to leave.
Grandmas do that because they know, they're like, well, you're not my kid, you're my grandchild, so you should. My mom says the same thing, and it makes me angry. I was like, well, you let Kyla eat candy like all the time, and she goes, but she's my granddaughter. That your teeth was my responsibility.
Oh, thanks, Grandma. Thanks, Grandma.
Well, I also felt bad because one time I got a really bad cavity and they had to pull out my teeth, and I screamed bloody murder. Like I held the nurse's hand so hard, like I dug my hand, like my nails in her. And the doctor's like, "Oh, you'll be fine," and I was like, "But she won't."
Dude, my grandma used to be like, let me see your loose tooth, right? And we always fall for it. Once she like wiggle, she just yank it. Every single kid. And I'm just like, why do we keep falling for it? We're so dumb.
All right, thanks you guys for watching. I hope you really enjoyed our happiness podcast. I hope that you also find some sort of happiness, some way to self-care this week, and we'll see you back next week.
Stay bitchin'.
Stay bitchin'.